food co-op that literally, I guess it was the feds. I can't remember if it was the feds or the state. It was just a food co-op. They were locally grown food. This family had this co-op, and they stored this food, and people came and got it from them. I don't think there was any advertising. There wasn't anything going across state lines or whatever. And they shut them down. They took all their food. They took their computers, everything. And you're saying one of the keys that needs to be shared is returning that license.
Yeah, because they only have jurisdiction over you if you play in their arena. If you stick to the common law side and the private side of things, they have no jurisdiction. You may have to defend yourself because they're criminals and corrupt, but you at least, with a little bit of educating, and I will gladly, share that information for those, it's quite lengthy and you have to do your own education, but there are sources of information, and you have to step out of their reality. And it's no different than going to the doctors. Same thing. As soon as you walk through the door, you give them jurisdiction to put chemicals into you, to harm you, to do whatever they want to you, unless you walk out of their arena.
Yeah. And you're saying you were successful, right?
On my farm, yes.
Yeah, getting them to leave you alone, basically.
Yeah, because they had no jurisdiction. I didn't have a license. I was totally on the private side.
Well, that would apply. I understand they're trying to get some of these producers to do RFID chips in their cows or their whatever hogs or whatever. That would apply to them as well, would it not?
Correct. The other thing is they're chipping everybody right now without our consent through nanotechnology anyhow. So that whole thing is all a big distraction.
That's true.
I mean, this is all what the nanotechnology is coming. It's coming to us through the pharmaceutical drugs, through vaccines, through the conventional food chain, through the air we're breathing. It's developing what's called assembling inside of us, and people are being chipped. We've got machines right now that can measure the frequencies that people are giving off, regular RF signals. They're giving and receiving. So we're being chipped without our consent right now.
I think it's everybody's hope that the efforts that Drake is involved with is going to bring that to a halt, don't you think?
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Also, I'm aligned with that. The other thing is, until that happens, the information that I've researched and gleaned and put together is we have ways of dismantling that technology today, as well as reversing their genetic modification today, as well as boosting our immunity and healing in this chemicalized soup that we live in as an environment today and be relatively healthy. It's the same technology, and it's basically you're putting minerals, microorganisms into your body, into your environment internally, reversing the damage, as well as looking at a different way of eating, because not only the health industry has been compromised for over 40 years, but the conventional medical nutritional way of eating is totally not biologically correct. So you really have to consider looking at all different avenues of altering your way of being, like Drake was saying. Not just looking at government a different way. You have to look at your health care, natural or allopathic, because they're both the same and just doing symptom relief using elements, natural or chemical, to try to relieve a symptom, as well as what you're being told to eat. Because what you're being told to eat, either in the natural health world or the allopathic world, is inaccurate, in my opinion. These are general statements now, so don't get the lynch and rope out just yet. I'm talking in generality. So you really got to consider that we've been lied to everywhere.
Yeah.
Will?
Is that you, Chris?
It is. Thank you for noticing.
Hello, Chris.
Hi.
Please join in.
Well, thank you. Will, I'm listening to your conversation. I certainly admire what you've revealed so far. I would like to perhaps add a different dimension to the conversation and observe that this is part of a much larger scale overall plan for creating a global crisis by starvation through the destruction of the food sources, the contamination and sterilization of the earth, as well as the human genome and transmutation or changing of the human genetic structure to a different, unbefore known form to divide the masses from the self-preserved scientific technocratic elite.
I agree with that.
I'm afraid I do too.
I think there's another ulterior agenda to that, which I've learned through a couple of friends of mine, that the permission or the I don't know what the word, but because the industrialists have altered the genetic structure of us humans, then now they can take ownership, because they have, just like with the seeds in the ground, the corn and whatnot, they have altered the genetic structure and patented those. They have taken the time to genetically modify humans in general, and now they are patenting the human genome because they have altered it, and now they've turned it into securities, just like they have a mortgage, and now they're being traded on the Securities Exchange Commission on the market internationally. So if you've been to a doctor and had a blood sample in the last 15 years or so, then they have been monitoring you to make sure that they've altered your genetic structure, so now they own your genetic expression, so now they own you. So that's why it's so important to get out of that arena with them completely, which is not an easy task, because it involves a lot of altering your belief system.
Methinks the Talmudists have deceived themselves into the false belief that they can controvert the human by genetic alteration and thereby change the presumed chosen of God, who will come back, or whichever God they presume it to be, and try to separate us from being able to achieve our realignment with our Creator Master, Father in the heavens later on, and to thereby divide themselves and give themselves, because of their unaltered state, some believed right of supremacy because of their genetic purity, although their genetic purity likely derives from the Canaanite clans of the Dark Master of the underworld.
Well, this platform today, I'm not really going to go down that road, but they may think they have deceived, but my main issue is they're doing it today, and I'm doing my best to alter that genetic expression that they've created and turning things back to natural, the way it's supposed to be.
Well, you know, I'm so glad you are. I mean, you are actually coming up with solutions to some serious problems that we all face. The other thing that has concerned me is I looked at this NASA PowerPoint presentation that was put out in July 2001, and one of the slides on that, and it talked about the future being artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and biotechnology, and that's what they were selling to the audience, and that was basically the industrial military complex. But they had one slide that said, of particular concern, uncontrolled or uncontrollable self-replication of brilliant robots, nano-replicators, or rampant biotechnology. You know what, Will, I'm not so sure that their experiments aren't out of control already. Do you think they're still under control of all these things?
Control tightly, no. I think they're kind of like steering a herd of chickens across the field, maybe.
Yeah. Because what they're doing, their experiments, there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to control all this insanity.
The doctrine of unintended consequences may rear its ugly head.
Right, because nature will always try to hold a balance. And the other thing that the insane people that are in power right now are not taking into consideration that there are people with morals and ethics, and they do not, or it appears they're not able to take into consideration the soul aspect of the human body. It's not just a machine. There is a strength and a power in our consciousness that it appears that they have no clue about, because the consciousness is shifting. The flesh may not be. It's doing what they want, if you will, but there's a conscious shifting that's taking place.
Well, I know when you talked about the DNA, and that they were patenting it, for people who haven't seen the documentary, The Corporation, which is free online, and that came out in 2003, and those researchers from Canada who made that award-winning documentary, they exposed exactly what you were saying about the DNA way back in 2003, but, most people, I don't know, a lot of people must have seen it or forgot about it, but I certainly remembered it when I saw that. They're taking the DNA of infants now, aren't they?
Well, sure. That's why they take a blood sample when children are born. If you go to the hospital and if you play in that arena, you give up.
This is specifically a military attack as posed in the Economic Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars that was published in the late 1940s, and it's been brought together under also 10 U.S.C. 2358, the Strom-Thurmond NDAA Act of 1961, which provides especially for these military experimentational aspects through these technological, scientific, and the mysterious other desired methodologies that they may choose to deploy in the interest of the national security.
Well, as soon as they altered the Constitution and created, the 14th Amendment and on, they have dominion over the chattel that they've created out of man. So, it only stands to reason that they think the way they think and can do what they do because of their reasoning.
Well, I really appreciated what you were saying about, the contract that's made by the license, and I think you guys are talking about that as well. And I'd love to see us, maybe at some point we could put together some kind of a little brochure. And when I go to the farmers markets this summer, I always ask these guys questions about what kind of difficulty they're having. They really are clueless about what you're saying, which is this commercial code and how they're inadvertently contracting to obey these rules, and then they get attacked by these agencies, and they have no idea why.
Because they're oblivion to what's really going on.
Yeah.
Most people have no clue because they've been publicly educated for the most part.
Say, Will, do you have knowledge about the nano-injectable viruses that attach to the telomeres of the DNA and re-alter the gene structure and change the sequencing of the DNA, RNA, and alter the effects of what would naturally occur?
Yeah, it's not just injected, though. I mean, we're breathing the particles in. You're eating food that's loaded with genetically modified agrobacterium and other microorganisms that are created and mutated. All those play in the gene expression.
It is a very insidious concept that these psychopaths have devised for us.
Right, that's why I put together some help, because I've had friends lose their lives trying to publish this information in the past, and it's not that difficult. It's basically just returning some natural order to things And you can go to my website, Body Electrician. The first page you'll see is nature's chelation, and it lays